Hello and welcome to this week's Agri-Marketing Mastery with me, Rob Marsden, Head of Digital at Red Stag Media. Today we're going to talk about one of my favourite topics, website traffic, and more specifically data analysis and how to use it to understand why your website might be losing traffic. So first of all, data. You do of course need to be using a web analytics package to get the data you need to analyse the trends that we're going to talk about. The most popular of these is Google Analytics, which is a free tool provided by Google, and it's extremely powerful when it comes to tracking and measuring the performance of your website. A quick note on GA is that from the 1st of July 2023, Google is actually retiring its Universal Analytics product, which a lot of marketers are still using, and it's been replaced by GA4, which does work differently and has a different interface to Universal Analytics. But both can be run in parallel, and we'd recommend gearing up for the transition as early as you can. Unfortunately, to maintain reliable year-on-year comparisons, you will have had to have GA4 implemented by the 1st of July this year, but if you haven't, just get it done as soon as you can so that you can get used to the interface and have everything tracking as you need it to in time for July next year. If you need any help doing this, just get in touch and we can give you some advice. So assuming you have your web analytics package in place and you're getting an accurate measurement of website traffic with some historical data to look at, you're all set to start analysing. Now, the bulk of this episode will be about the main reasons why you might be losing website traffic and not actually how to perform the analysis in GA. So I am assuming that you've got a basic working knowledge of the platform itself. So let's get into the potential reasons you could be losing web traffic. It's worth mentioning that this isn't by any means a comprehensive list, but it's a list that serves as my starting point when I'm investigating a traffic drop. It might be that there's a different reason your website has lost traffic, but in the vast majority of cases, one or a combination of the reasons I'm about to go through will be responsible. So the first one is a search engine algorithm update. Now, if you rely heavily on organic search traffic, you are more vulnerable to traffic losses from algorithm updates that the likes of Google make on an ongoing basis. Over the years, there have been some fairly major updates that have been rolled out, which have really rocked the SEO world, but the reality is that Google has a large team of engineers who are working all day long on its large and complex algorithm, and now and again you may experience drops in traffic. Google will typically announce larger updates and state the date that they start rolling the algorithm update out. So if you do experience a noticeable drop in organic traffic during that period, it could be that you've been negatively affected. As an update rolls out, it can change though, and if you see a drop at the beginning of the update, you can sometimes see an uptick towards the end and vice versa. If you track keyword positions, as we do for our SEO clients on a daily basis, the first thing to do is see if any key positions have been lost during the update, which might result in a lower click-through rate from the search engine results pages and therefore less traffic. Sometimes you won't see a loss in positions when looking at head term keywords, but overall traffic levels can dip if the algorithm update affects more longer tail phrases, which could be something to do with a change in natural language understanding at Google's end. So the second thing to look at if you're experiencing a traffic drop is seasonality. Now, this might sound like an obvious one, but there are some nuances with it. In the main, you're likely to be very in tune with the seasonality of your business and customer segments, but certain events can throw usual seasonality trends out of kilter a bit. For example, very obvious things like the recent pandemic, but also things like unusual weather events and topics being covered in the media which can have an impact on consumer sentiment and therefore search patterns. A couple of tips I can give you when looking at year-on-year comparisons is one, to look back multiple years to identify anomalies. And two, is to try and line the days up. What I mean by this is that year to year, the mix of days within a month will change. For example, in September 2021, there were 5 Wednesdays, whereas in September 2022, there were only 4. Now, if Wednesdays tend to be a high traffic day for you, you're not looking like for like. So in this case, you'd be better off adjusting the comparison slightly to line up the days. It might only mean shifting it all forwards or backwards a day or two, but it should give you a more accurate picture of where the difference is in performance. Within seasonality, as it's sort of related, I'll also include less demand for a product or brand over time. I won't labour the point too much because it's fairly simple to understand, but can you imagine what the search trend has looked like, for example, for a term like DVD players over the past 5 years? For anyone wondering, it's on screen now. Number 3, campaigns coming to an end. So this is more of an issue for larger companies with a more siloed structures. So in some cases, PR will sit separately to marketing, which will sit separately to brand. And you can see why in some cases there is a sort of a campaign visibility issue there. But if you do start to see traffic to decline, look at the channel mix to see if it's across the board or just in one area, and think about whether that could be impacted by PR, marketing or brand campaigns coming to an end. For example, at the end of a PR campaign, you might see direct traffic or branded search traffic tailing off, or if a paid social media campaign's coming to an end, you might see reduced traffic levels being reported in the relevant campaign report in Google Analytics. Fourth one is website changes. So ongoing iterative website improvements are part of the evolution of a brand and its offering. The problem is that sometimes website changes can have a negative impact on things like organic search visibility, which can lead to reduced traffic from search engines. All I'll say on this one is, where possible, sense check all planned changes with an SEO specialist to make sure that they're not going to ruin your organic traffic. The last one I'm going to cover, as I said earlier, this isn't a comprehensive list, but a starting point is technical issues. This could be website downtime, analytics tracking and tagging issues, server or DNS issues, etc. If you do suspect an issue in this sort of area, speak with your development team or web dev agency and ask them to look into it. Okay, that's it. I hope you found the video interesting, and if you've got any questions about any of it, feel free to get in touch.